Hey, what's up, everybody? Tim Albrecht here, and welcome to this week's episode of the Ask a YFP CFP segment of the Your Financial Pharmacist Podcast, where we feature questions from you, the YFP community, to be answered by one of our very own fee-only certified financial planners. Please note this podcast is intended for educational purposes and should not be considered financial or investment advice, as we do not know all the variables to one's personal situation when answering a question. Before we jump into today's question, a shout out to our extraordinary YFP financial planning team that makes this segment possible. Your Financial Pharmacist offers fee-only comprehensive financial planning services that are customized to the pharmacy professional. So whether you want to pay off your student loans, make the right investment decisions, or simply build a solid financial plan, we'll help get your income working for you rather than the other way around. You can learn more by visiting yfpplanning.com. Again, that's yfpplanning.com. This week's question comes from Christian in Arkansas.
Hi, this is Christian from Greenbrier, Arkansas, and I was wondering about the interest rate on my direct unsubsidized loans that are still held with the government. I recently logged on to my Nelnet account where my loans are still in forbearance due to the CARES Act, and I noticed that my interest rate had gone up on all of my loans, one of them from 5.96% to 6.21%. And I was wondering if this was a common occurrence. I was under the impression that the interest rates would be staying the same throughout the life of the loan.
Thank you, Christian, for submitting your question to be featured on this week's Ask a YFP CFP segment of the Your Financial Pharmacist Podcast. Tim Baker, what are your thoughts?
Yeah, so when I heard this question, I kind of, had the raised eyebrow because, I think the loan was like a direct unsubsidized loan, and typically all federal loans are a fixed interest rate, meaning that the rate is not variable where it kind of goes up and down, per, the Fed rate cut or increase or, some type of index. So I think the first thing that I would say here is, one, I probably would reach out to the loan servicer and just ask what's going on. Sometimes, and I'm not saying this is necessarily the case, in Christian's case, sometimes we confuse federal and private loans, and sometimes they're often held by the same servicer. So like Navient can have federal loans, but they can also have private loans, which makes student loans, which can be very confusing already, even more confusing. So, I think the big message here is, Christian, is probably I just make sure that you have a proper inventory. And if you do in fact see, the other thing that is kind of weird is that because the variable student loan rates, which are typically on the private side of things, they're often connected to like the Fed. They've been cutting rates. Rates are so low. It's like it's just weird that they're actually higher.
Yeah.
So there's a lot of things here that kind of like piques my interest with regard to this particular question that doesn't necessarily line up for me. So I think at the end of the day, it would be, again, go back, inventory the loan. I would actually look at, what we use as basically the two main sources to inventory our loans are the NSLDS file, which is an ugly text file that basically shows the loans from loan origination, so birth, until death, where you actually pay them off or at least, refinance them. And that will show you, all of the deferral and grace periods kind of in between and when you're in repayment. Now, it's an ugly text file that we basically load into a piece of software that spits out a nice, clean, report of what is what. And that's what we use to kind of, inventory the loans. The other big thing, which we, talked about here previously on another Ask YFP is the credit report. So the credit report is the best place to kind of inventory federal, but then also your private loans. So believe it or not, that's the best way to kind of look at all the private loans that you have, and be able to see, what's left on them in terms of balance. Sometimes they'll show the interest rate, not all the time, and then also probably as a caveat to that, it's just to log into your loan provider, your loan servicer, and then just kind of marry the two up and just make sure everything looks good. But again, I've never seen federal loans that have a variable rate. So that's something that's definitely a little bit different. So to me, that's where I would basically look to kind of resolve this issue.
Yeah. And I think, whether it's Christian or many others that are listening, I think often there's a step of, cleaning up or making sure you've got the right inventory and you know exactly what you're working with, the types of loans, federals or private, and interest rates and all those things. And then there's the next very important step of, really trying to figure out, do I have the best repayment strategy in place, right?
Yeah.
So once we understand everything that we have, looking at the rest of the financial plan and the picture, knowing there's so many options in ranging from forgiveness to non-forgiveness and the federal and the private system, do I have the optimal repayment strategy in place for my personal situation? So that really, I think, is such an important question to answer, but making sure you've got this inventory piece obviously is so critical to be able to get to that next step. And as a part of that, I would use this as an opportunity to put in a plug for our most recent book written by Tim Church, The Pharmacist Guide to Conquering Student Loans, which those that are interested can learn more at pharmdloans.com. And that's exactly what he talks about, really front cover to back cover in that book is, how do you understand everything that you have? And ultimately, how do you get to that best repayment strategy? And as a part of those packages that we have on the book, one of those options is a one-on-one student loan analysis with a certified financial planner that's on our team, which I think is for many people really helpful to be able to get to that place of making sure I have everything right in terms of the inventory, and then getting to that important step of clarity around that best repayment strategy.
Yeah, and it's not uncommon. I see this a lot less than what I used to see it, and this is me, like, humble. This is us, maybe humble brag. I think we've done a good job of like talking about student loans, but it wasn't uncommon for people to say, "Oh yeah, I have $150,000 in loans," and then when I actually do analysis, we find another $25,000, $30,000, $40,000 in private loans that we just kind of forgot about. So you're now the borrower that we're coming, that I'm seeing is more savvy. They can kind of talk through more strategies and ways to optimize that. And I'll say this on mic, Tim. I was actually talking to a prospective client that's been following us since like P1 year, and it kind of made me feel like warm and fuzzy inside because they're like, "Hey, we've been following you since that time," and was very savvy and kind of talking about the loans and things like that. So, but sometimes it's not the case. Sometimes like the inventory, which is a critical piece that sometimes we overlook, is important. But I would just do some further research, and then again, if you need help, obviously, I'm biased, but I think if you're talking, average pharmacy salaries are in the six figures, it's not hyperbole to say that, it's a six-figure decision on how you actually, decide to select your strategy and optimize the strategy.
Absolutely. And again, pharmdloans.com if you want to learn more about the book, as well as the packages that include a one-on-one student loan analysis with one of our certified financial planners. So Christian, thank you again for taking time to submit this question. And as a small thank you for doing so, we're going to be sending you a super comfy YFP t-shirt. And to those that are listening, if you'd like to have your question featured on a future episode, please go to yourfinancialpharmacist.com/ask YFP or shoot us an email at info@yourfinancialpharmacist.com. Have a great rest of your week.